Blog Talk Radio.
Y'all ready for this? All right, so we're going to have the next huddle guest, and everybody knows her, and we know her, of course, and we just basically named her Captain Crutches, and that's our Captain America, Holly Custis of the Seattle Majestics. So, Holly, how's it going today?
It's going pretty good. How are you doing?
We're going good. I think the intro
Holly.
fits now.
Hello.
I think the intro fits now until you get back on your feet, as they say, or your 2 feet, because I know you're on 1 foot, but you know how that goes. Holly, the two co-hosts here got a real taste of Women's Gridiron, first time live. Odessa Jenkins, Dallas Elite versus Allie Hamlin and the DC Divas. So they got the little chocolate feel of women's football, the little treat. And they were both excited.
Yes.
They did a great job on Periscope. Besides, their phone's freezing, as Troy mentioned to me before. I was like, what? Troy, the phone froze. So I thought he was joking at first, but then it was real. The phone did freeze, so it was kind of not cool. But anyways, it worked out.
No, because
well,
you could just see the Periscope that I did where it was actually grainy. The wind was blowing so hard that it didn't even come into focus.
So Holly,
that ought to be a really fun game.
The game against Tacoma, and a fitting name. I think it's probably the best name in women's football, the Trauma. So if you're on defense, probably the best name you can have. And if you're a badass defense, I would hate to face the Trauma. But it is a great name. I was told by Mrs. Samuelson. Or Miss Samuelson, if I want to pronounce it right. I was told it was probably the worst game in Majestics history for a win. So I don't know if you agree with that or not.
They always say a win is a win, and this is definitely the case. I will say our defense, our defense came to play. And I've played in games like this where it's hard because as a defense, you're holding your own. And then you get off the field, and then there's a turnover 2 plays later, and then you're back on the field again. And it was kind of like that. Defensively, we did some really good things. We swung to the ball well. They couldn't get anything on the edges at all. Some of our linebackers have really started. I can see them developing, and so that was exciting for me. I think they played really well. Our secondary did well. One of our second-year players, Mike Forston, had a pick six. I don't remember how many yards it was on the return, but it had to be at least 50, maybe 60 yards on the return. It was a great play. So our defense was there, and it's improving. And offensively, we had a lot of issues. It was one of those games in which we just kept shooting ourselves in the foot. We would move the ball, and then there'd be a penalty. We would move the ball and then turn it over. And it just, not to take anything away from Tacoma, because they did play, fairly well, and they made some plays, but we did not help ourselves at all. And so it was pretty ugly at times. But, the way I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, every team has a moment or two during their season where they face some sort of adversity. And for us, we've had so many injuries and so many different new faces in different positions that there was always going to be this point that it comes back to bite us. And I think this was that game where we just weren't cohesive. And we would have people make plays, we'd have a couple of good runs, but we weren't one cohesive unit. And we had a couple penalties where they just weren't focused, and silly things like false starts, delay a game off a timeout, like just not together, right? And so I think this is that week where we have to kind of regroup and realize, okay, we might have had a really rough offensive game, but this is an opportunity to fix some things without having to lose. So if you're going to have that game, you would rather be on the winning side of it. So I think it's going to be kind of a soul-searching week for us as we go down to Portland this coming weekend offensively to see if we can put that back together. And I think we definitely can. So I'm excited to see that happen.
Troy, you got anything for Captain Crutches?
Yeah, you said, so you felt like the defense, they did their thing out there. What attributed mainly to their success on the defensive side of the ball?
They, I can tell that, some of the newer linebackers that we have are gelling together. They're starting to become a unit. And as a linebacking core, you need to be one unit. Wherever the ball goes, you should all be there, flowing one side of the field to another. They're starting to believe in each other, and I can see that. We always had, our secondary has been pretty solid I don't think we've had any real injuries in our secondary from last year, so they're just making plays. Defensive line is improving too. They're getting in the backfield and getting pressure, and I think the defense is starting to gel. And I think that's only going to continue to get better. So they're starting to become one unit. It's just the offense isn't quite on that same level yet.
Hey, I wanted to know what your thoughts were about the news. I don't know if you've been watching the news as far as with Will Smith. Just wanted to get your take on it, with him being killed in New Orleans.
Anytime anybody is killed like that at any point, it's always going to be sad. I understand, anything like that is going to be very traumatic for a team. I know when I first started playing for Corvallis, there was a player that they had, I think, a year or two before me that I think a couple of days before their playoff game got in a horse accident and passed away. And I just know when I got to that team, I didn't know who this person was, but we had 33 on everything. And I didn't know what that meant, and I later found out it was her number. And it was for those players on that team, it was a big ordeal, and they kept that number 33 sacred the rest of their careers, probably still to this day. And so I can only imagine what that's like for New Orleans, especially having just been down there. I can tell New Orleans as a city is definitely a football city, and I'm sure that they're all hurting, and I feel awful, and I hope, my heart reaches out to that entire city, his family, and everybody involved, because that's just heart-wrenching. So I hope that New Orleans can kind of rally around it and stick together as a family.
Yeah, it's been just sad all the way around. I mean, either way it goes, either way you look at it, it's just sad all the way around. But, switching gears back to your team, the Majestics, how do you see going forward? I mean, because you did bring up and I thought the same thing, when I heard that it wasn't the prettiest game out there that you guys won. But how do you see your team going forward for the rest of this year? Do you see there's going to be a lot of room for improvement, but how quickly do you think that the offense will be getting up to speed?
I think it's going to be one of those years in which you're going to have some ups and downs, especially depending on the matchup of who we're playing, because you have a lot of newer players, right? And so you're putting them in positions they're not used to, and so there's going to be a learning curve. But I think the thing that's going to be fun to watch is I feel like even though it's going to be not as pretty or as easy, I think everybody on this team is just capable. They're totally capable of getting through it, and I guarantee it by the end of the season they're going to find that cohesiveness. It's just going to take some time. I think sometimes in women's football we take for granted, like you look at the Chicagos, the Pittsburghs, and the Falcons and all those teams. Those teams have cores that are together for a while usually, or they have a system in which they build people up. And if you take one of those teams and you put as many injuries as we've had in those key positions, any team would struggle. So I think it's not a matter of are you going to struggle, it's a matter of are you going to struggle and still prevail. And I think that the psychological makeup of this team is strong enough that we can do that. It's not going to be easy. I mean, our conference is also, or our division, is also improving. So it wasn't going to be as easy as not like it was easy last year, but it was going to be more difficult no matter what. And I'm very confident in my team that we can pull this through.
Awesome stuff. Keisha, you have anything?
No, I just wanted to, yes. I actually had the awesome pleasure of interviewing Callie for the Periscope. And, she's injured right now. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions that I asked her, what is she looking forward to the most, and what is it that she's missing the most? And she said something, really similar, Holly, to what you have said, is that not only does she miss being on the field, but she misses being out there with her family. She misses being out there with the team. And, she said any other day she might have been on the sideline with them. But Saturday was just so awful. She said, I don't think I mind, the booth. But she said it really makes a difference. So having already had now a game under your belt and, and not to make you feel worse or, whatever about the injury, but are you connecting, with Callie's sentiment, in terms of you're both injured, you're both critical, to the team, and you guys are both, definitely leaders on your team. So can you connect to Callie's sentiment in terms of what it means to be out there, in the huddle with your teammates?
Yes, absolutely, like 110%. And I was actually at the camp when Callie got injured, and everybody at the camp respects Callie. So when she went down, it was pretty quiet because everybody knows that she means to not only her team but also the sport. She's been around for a while and she's had a great career. But yeah, I definitely. I mean, okay, so this weekend I had a Fitbit on the sidelines, and I crutched 3.5 miles on the sideline. And so for me, like, before each game, you have that, like, nervous energy. And like I said last week, I don't know what to do with it. So I just, I try to be as connected to my team as I can. It's been kind of difficult because I haven't been able to go to everything. I could normally, every practice. But I've done my best to try to keep connected. So I'm always talking to somebody. I'm always trying to find somebody to encourage or, tell them what I see. But I will tell you, it's very difficult, especially in a game like on Saturday when I was like, oh, I just want to go and play. And there was at one point, I mean, I'm not sure if Rebecca Samuelson had mentioned this, but this had to be the most penalized game I've ever been a part of, on the sideline. And it wasn't just us. Like, they flagged Tacoma a lot, too. I don't even know how many penalties there were, but it was getting kind of ridiculous. And so I remember I was on the sideline, and there was a tackle on our quarterback that was kind of on the borderline. It could have been a horse collar, but, that's my quarterback, so I'm going to be protective no matter what it is. And I got really excited. I was about ready to come on the field, and one of my coaches was like, Holly, no. And so I had to be like, okay.
Yeah, because you were ready to get out there.
I was ready to go out there and protect my quarterback. But it's hard because that is your family. And so you're protective of them. I mean, the very nature of football is very physical. And I've played sports my whole life, and I've never had a bond with my teammates in other sports like I do in football. It's because you literally need everybody. You can't have a Kobe that just takes over the game. If you have an Adrian Peterson and nobody blocks, I don't care how good he is, you're not moving the ball because it's 1 on 11. you need every single person, and because of the nature of the game, you need each other, and you become family.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I could definitely see that on Saturday too, and and I'm really glad you said that about just the nature of the game, because it really and truly at some points seemed like, and again, watching it live on the sideline, totally different from watching it on YouTube, but at some points it seemed like when they say a well-oiled machine, especially with some of the defensive stops in the first half that the DC Divas were putting up on the Dallas Elite, they were truly working in unison. I mean, it didn't matter which direction they went. It was like they were just one mind, one body, and they weren't getting through. Now, I don't know what happened to change in the second half, but that's why I said, well, considering that they were up 13-0, I said, well, I could hear stuff coming from the DC side, so I said, okay, I'm going to go back over there on this side. I want to see what they're doing differently, after the second half, to see how they're going to adjust, what kind of changes they're going to make. To say hungry is an understatement. You could literally, if you could feel hunger from someone else, the way they were talking to each other, the way they were motivating each other, of course, words that we cannot repeat on the air, And can I just say that what I also was surprised to see was the same level of intensity and support from their staff, from the coaches to the players in the booth to the sideline staff. Everyone was 100% committed to those ladies on that field. And that was an amazing energy to behold. And another thing, Oscar, and we didn't mention this earlier, but the Washington Nationals, in support of the DC Divas, for those who don't know, the Washington Nationals are DC's Major League Baseball team, and they have not one mascot, but they actually have a new one now too, but they have what's known as the Racing Presidents. And so the presidents are the mascots for the Washington Nationals, DC presidents. And they sent out one of the mascots, they sent out Woodrow Wilson to be there in support. So again, it's showing that there's respect for the product that's on the field when the National Major League Baseball team sends one of their representatives out in support of what these ladies are doing.
I thought I was your new boyfriend,
awesome.
but I was trying to figure it out.
Now, I like them tall. I really like them tall. Let me be very clear. I love a tall man. I am 5'8", so if you are 6 feet to 6'5", I will be a happy woman. But his head is too big.
He has glasses, so he was kind of not your type, I don't think.
I like him. Smart. No. I like him smart.
Oh.
I like him smart. I like him smart, but his head is too big.
But that's a good point. It's a good point you brought up. It's a good point you brought up. It's the fact that they're recognizing for them to even contribute something like that, a prop or anything like that. That's great.
No, I'm glad that you mentioned that game, because I haven't had a chance to. I saw the score, but I haven't had a chance to see any of the film. But I know a lot of the players on both sides, and I respect both teams a lot. And so I'm kind of sad I didn't get to see it live. But I mean, that's the thing that people don't realize about the sport of football is you take two teams that are equal in talent, equal in coaching. And the X factor is always the chemistry. It really is. It's an invisible thing in football, but it means so much. I have seen teams that are, on that level of talent, and the minute something goes sideways, they break down and just destroy themselves. And so if you have that bond, it means everything, because you stop playing for yourself and you play for the person next to you, and you become so much stronger as a unit than you are as individuals. And it really is amazing to watch and be a part of.
Yeah, and you have to have, like you said, the unity part. I mean, Troy knows, he's a linebacker. If you don't have the beast left to right as one unit to kill, you're not killing. You're killing yourself, basically. That's usually the theory on the defensive side of the ball. If you're not covering, if you're not moving left to right, and you're not zoning very well, you do get murdered, with the plays and stuff.
Oh, speaking of murdering, can I just say, and I'm glad you brought that up, Oscar. Speaking of murdering, one of the reasons why the Dallas Elite was able to put up some of the numbers that they put up, that offensive line in the second half, they were just opening up the hole like crazy. And their run game was ridiculous. And they were able to take advantage of the weather, which truthfully I thought was going to be a factor. You know how we always talk about the big games? Oh, like with Peyton. Oh, can he handle the weather? Oh, he's a dome player. Oh, he's a this. You've got Dallas coming from warm weather. And I actually had one of my college classmates was in town with me that weekend, and she actually lives in Dallas. And so, she was complaining the whole weekend about how cold it was. So the weather should have been a factor and a help on the side of the Divas. But Dallas was able to use that to their advantage, and they really opened up their run game. And when I say that offensive line in the second half of that game came out and was just totally opening up the gap. Odessa was just getting through like crazy. The juke moves were like, and they were little, and I thought that got me too, because I'm like, they're not big. The running backs, they're not big bowling balls, but what they had was crazy speed and agility.
Oh yeah, it's very difficult to catch Odessa.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I said it's difficult to catch Odessa. I mean, I haven't really played. I've never been on a team that we've played, face to face, like a whole entire game. But I've been at camps and stuff with her, and I've faced her and tackled her a couple of times, and it is not easy. She is fast.
Yeah, she's a speedster for sure.
Fast. She is,
and Tiffany, you can't take anything away from Tiffany Hill, too. Tiffany Hill's pretty
oh, no, she's
pretty
solid.
talented.
She's a really good running back.
You saw Tiffany Hill live, right, Nkishi?
Man, sometimes I forgot that I was supposed to be watching as, because you're so wrapped up into the game. And that's what I mean about that heart and soul. And what I was really enjoying was just seeing some of the fundamentals. And once you're able to play solid fundamental football, the rest of it comes easily. And those ladies just were amazing all the way around. And yeah, I saw a couple girls get run over. So yeah, Tiffany, she was running some people over. It was just solid football.
So I will tell you, what you saw on that day was not the Dallas Cowboys, just to say. I'm just saying.
Oh, see. Well, considering that we now have Alfred Morris, I'm sure we'll do a lot more of that good old-fashioned downhill running.
I say I take the lead over the Cowboys. That's because I'm a 49ers fan also.
I know. We give her hell all the time. It's America's team in her. It's America's team in her eyes, but like Troy says, it's really not, because the Washington Redskins are in the nation's capital, so that's where America is.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's nice. But when your Forbes list looks like my Forbes list, let's have a conversation. Well, actually, not when Dan Snyder's Forbes list and ranking looks like Jerry Jones, but yeah. So, but it really, like I said, it really truly, and there was, and I can't remember her name right now. There was a wide receiver on the DC
it's Alberta
team.
Bridson.
Yes. Oh my God, she's got some hands on her.
Number 24.
That woman is.
Are you talking about Dallas or DC?
No, for the DC Divas.
Are you talking about Ashley?
Yeah. What? Tell me the name again.
I think it's. Are you talking about Ashley?
Troy, do you remember who I'm talking
Ashley.
about? They just kept calling her name over and over. I mean, she just was moving the chains.
Yeah, she was balling. I mean, she was especially in the first half. I mean, they were really chugging along. In the second half, they kind of started to throw the ball a little bit more to catch up. But yeah, she was balling the whole game.
Man, her hands were just crazy. And I'm telling you, and I said, I don't know how they're doing it because, my hands were frozen. I couldn't wait for halftime to run upstairs to the booth. You're talking
about Wissonet, right? Ashley Wissonet. She's really talented.
I think that might be who it was.
Man,
she was serious.
She was number 12.
Yes.
Yeah, Ashley Wissonet. That's her name.
Yeah, because I was going to say I don't have my roster in front of me right now. All I know is that the way she was moving across the field, I mean, it's like it did not matter. She was always open in the gap. I mean, the plays that they were running for her to get her open, perfect. Some serious slant routes. Sorry, I can't talk tonight. Some serious. Whatever. I'm tired. It's not going to come out. Otherwise, I'll just sound silly. But I really and truly was impressed. And you know what else they did that I really liked too, especially in the first half for the Divas. And like Troy said, I think they got worn down toward the end, but they really played to their players' strengths. And and when players were not moving the chains and were not putting their all out there, they were getting yanked. Oh, she doesn't have the juice. Get her out. I mean, you could hear them on the sideline. The coaches and it was just a beauty. It was just a thing of beauty. That's all I have. It was just a thing of beauty.
Hey, Troy, you got to see Conjetta live. What do you think, Conjetta Grisby?
What position did she play? Sorry about that.
She was the running back. Conjetta, number 29.
Yeah, for 29. Yeah.
For DC.
That's who I was talking about. That's who I was talking about. Conjetta Grisby. Oh my God, that's who I was.
Oh, she's really good too.
She is a monster. Bad player. Cannot wait to watch her again.
Yeah, she's very talented.
There is some really good players on both sides of that game.
Yeah, you get to see her live the last couple of seasons. She has been up there in MVP type caliber status. So, I mean, you got opportunities like Holly was saying earlier, very cohesive unit. So when you have that on both sides of the ball, you're going to see good football. So.
I mean, one of the things that I liked about her is that she didn't mess around with hitting the hole. I mean, she hit the hole right when she was supposed to. When she was running counter plays, she waited for a guard to pull in front of her, and then she hit the hole. They ran her in a couple of toss sweeps, and she got the edge faster than I thought she was going to get. I mean, it's like at one point I'm sitting there like, all right, is she going to get the edge? She already got the edge. All right, so she's coming around the corner already, and she would not hesitate to lower her shoulder. So, yeah, honestly, man, I was definitely impressed with the way they all played out there. I mean, I was just impressed with the overall crispness. This is my first women's game. So I'm like, okay, I tried to go into it, on the way up there, and I said, don't have any expectations. Just, let it flow to you. Don't have any expectation as far as, like, what you're going to see. But what I saw up there was a lot of fundamentals. I mean, you saw footwork. You saw cutting ability. You saw preciseness. I mean, both quarterbacks were throwing the ball extremely well, especially with the weather out there like that. I mean, I was impressed, and they didn't scale back. I mean, with the wind is blowing as hard as it was, they still threw the ball deep. They still threw slants. They had everything. It looked like their whole playbook was out there. So I was definitely impressed all the way with it.
Yeah, and Holly, you've already, like you talked about earlier. Most of these players, a lot of them on the roster, on both sides of the roster, are Team USA caliber players. So you know that they obviously have, the higher potential of elite athlete. In other words, you're playing on both sides of the ball, and we have to be forewarned because Odessa, before this game came up, when we interviewed her, I know you recall that, Troy. She wasn't going there to lose. So they put the burners on in the second half.
Yeah, that was her exact words. When she got the rock in the fourth quarter, man, and she was gone. I mean, I think she ran. It was a 60-yard touchdown she ran. I mean, she got the ball. There was no one that was there. I mean, she hit that hole and it was over. I mean, at that point, you start to see, and Holly can attest to this. When you start to see teams break those long runs, that's when you're starting to see that their defense is starting to wear down. They're starting to get tired. And they were on the field a long time in that first half. And it was more the same in the second half. I mean, and Keisha, you'll remember most of the time where DC got their stops was actually in the red zone. I mean, they had more red zone stops than I've seen in any game. I think DC stopped them in the red zone maybe four times.
Yep.
Yeah.
4 times in four times in one half. That's
right.
crazy.
And Dallas scored 40 points. So I mean, that should tell you how many times they had the ball. So, I mean, that defense definitely had to be tired after a while.
Now,
I mean, like
go,
if you,
guys,
sorry.
Go ahead, Holly. No, go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, I mean, similar to what I was saying about our game, like, as a defense, as you get deeper in a game like that, like, you got to keep together, and that's why the cohesiveness is so important, because when you start to get mentally and physically tired as an individual, that's when being a cohesive unit really pushes you forward, because when you know that you can trust the person next to you, you know you can get through that situation. And then if you don't have that, then you're feeling like, okay, I'm kind of on my own, and it's kind of a lonely feeling. And if you have 11 individuals doing that together, not trusting each other, then that's when the defense really breaks down.
Oh, there was trust.
And
there was definitely trust among both sides. And those ladies really and truly had each other's back. And that's what the one player from the league said, I got you. You just do what you do. I got you. You just run that ball. I mean, I thought I was listening to Michael Irvin in my ear. I mean, they're just that passion and that intensity, that's all they said. We got this. Just one more half. That's it. This is our game. We ain't going home. This is it. I mean, that was, and it was almost like they were chanting that in unison. I was like, wow. I said, yeah, I'm coming back.
That's awesome.
Now, you guys know that, the win and everything in the elements, it happens this whole weekend, week 1 and week 2. I guess it happens in the East Coast. In the East Coast, Cleveland, Pittsburgh had some snow as well, and there was a couple more places that had a little bit of snow as well. So the first weekend of the WFA saw a little bit of Mother Nature kind of, taking over in some places, especially on the East Coast. So that was kind of interesting to see and exciting to see too. So, Holly, any surprises so far in week 2? I know it's early, but not, for overall blanket in the league. Any surprises? You would assume, obviously when we talked to Neil, he said, and as Troy has alluded before, and Odessa confirmed, Dallas is hungry for their title. I truly believe the 2 games, and they're going to Arlington to face the Impact. I feel sorry for the Impact right now. I just do. I don't know if that's going to be 102-0 or something, because the way they, if you see them on video, on a film aspect of it, I would have to say our moniker fits the elite right now. No joke. No joke.
Yeah. I mean, when I was down hungry. They are very hungry. I remember when I was down in LA for the All-American game, and we were staying at the same hotel that, everybody was pretty much staying at the same hotel. But I ran into the team, and they were getting ready to go, I think, to the field for a practice. And you can feel I felt it with DC as well. That's why they're both at that level. But Dallas is hungry. I mean, I could see that they're hungry going into that game, but I think sometimes in sports and in life, when you lose, it sucks, of course, but sometimes what it does is it teaches you how to win, because you get to that point and you got there, but sometimes once you lose, you're like, okay, well now I know how to get there and I know what it takes to win. So they're kicking it up even a notch further than last year, because they're coming, and so I think that's what you're seeing is a team that loses in the championship game. They have a choice. They can either fold and try to rebuild, or they can bring it even harder, and they've chosen the latter. So yeah, I do feel bad for Arlington. I don't know if there's necessarily any large surprises. I will say in our division, the Southern Oregon Lady Renegades, which is kind of a mouthful to say, they've been holding pretty tough considering they're a brand new team. So I'm kind of curious to see what they're like in person. I mean, the Shockwave are doing well. They're competitive like we thought they would be. I'm looking at the scores right now. Central Cal beat Pacific. That's not a huge surprise.
I think you have to look at the Trojans
overall,
as a surprise. If I had to choose somebody, it would be the Trojans as a surprise this year. The Academia Zydeco surprise. So far, Alabama Fire.
Oh, yeah, that's a solid one.
You know what I mean? So there's a couple because the staple elite teams. We're looking at Renegades taking care of business against Cleveland. We had the surprise team, I think, in all of football right now in 2 weeks in is probably Philadelphia. They put up almost 25 points against the Renegades the first week. So,
I kind of had a feeling about them going into this season because I know a couple of their players, and just interacting with those players, I'm like, they know what they're doing, and they have good heads on their shoulders. So if they take that back with them to their team, I can tell that Philly is hungry too. So I definitely can see them being a playoff team.
Now the biggest thing we got to talk about is we have to give credit. 4 touchdowns this week for Tara Catoni out of the Philadelphia Passions. So I mean, their running game is strong. 2 touchdowns in the first week. We knew that they were. I mean, they're the 2-time defending IWFL champs coming into the WFA once again. So we know that they're going to be tough to beat. And based on their division schedule, I mean, they're in the mix for a playoff at this point. They play pretty tough. I mean, I don't know. Passion to me has to, get to that level, and then you're going to see what I call the Elite 8 in the end. The 4 best West Coast teams versus the 4 East Coast teams. Central Cal, no surprise, as you pointed out before. No surprise there. I mean, they always play good ball out there. Aspen Marshall, Chantel Wiggins. You got Destiny Jarbono out there. I mean, they've always had a very good offensive, and on top of that, a good defense as well. So that's like their nutshell right there. But Sin City Trojans, I don't know a lot about, but I think those were from the from Las Vegas Showgirls. So I'm assuming a lot of those players are probably playing on Sin City because they're playing pretty good ball so far in 2 weeks in.
Right. I think so. You had the Showgirls, and then you had the Devils last year, and I think some of those girls have filtered into the Trojans. And so, I think they'll be a solid team. We won't really know until they're tested a little bit more, I think. Meeting a lot of the Pittsburgh Passion players in New Orleans, I got the impression that they are a really, really solid franchise in that they build from the ground up. They have a solid foundation. They seem to be a team that they have strong leadership and veterans, and then they build their rookie class and their newer people up alongside them. They don't seem to have a lot of turnover. that women's football normally does. They seem to stick together well, which is why you're probably seeing them have such a great history, is because they keep it together, which is really difficult in women's football because we all have lives and people move on and do other things. So that's impressive about Pittsburgh to me. And so I think they're probably not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
So, Holly, we go to week 3. Give us your top 3. My top 3 are going to be Divas, Renegades, if you want to see a real clash of high-caliber football. I was going to choose, I'm debating at this point, Inferno, Dixie Blues. Inferno's on fire this year as well. I mean, at this point, it's Majestics, Portland would probably be my top 3 this coming weeks, given the War Angels are off.
I think that's pretty accurate. I'm also curious about the Philly-Richmond game, but I think those other 3 are really solid. Obviously, D.C. and Boston is going to be a solid game. They always play each other tough. And, I mean, we have a long history with the Shockwave, so it's going to be a battle there. Looking through the rest of the games, I think those would be my picks too, and then throw in the Philly and Richmond game.
Yeah, I think that would be the surprise. I'm really excited to see what Philadelphia will do this week. If they can go 2-1 in 3 weeks out, then to your point, it looks like they're going to be very good season in terms of being in the mix. Holly, thank you very much for joining us today. You're welcome back next Tuesday if you want, so we can talk more Majestics in terms of on the road to the playoffs. And so Nkishi and Troy had like I said, a first little bite of women's gridiron. I was just very happy that they got to see it live. And where else can they see it live but in their own background? So it's kind of exciting. Troy probably,
we got lucky.
So it's exciting. And so I'm looking forward to seeing if I can build up some funds here in the next 12 months so that I can start, as Nkishi had said initially when we talked initially, start traveling around and kind of just doing the stuff that we need to do. But it's forthcoming, so everything takes a little bit of time. But thank you for your insights, your predictions, and we'll look forward to next week and see how that works out. I'm thinking Boston will edge D.C. in my point of view, and Inferno will move on again. So, but that's my thing, and I'm rooting to see if, as your teammate Rebecca said, let's see if we can patch ourselves up and put a good fight against the Fighting Shockwave.
We need you know what though? We need Holly to Periscope a game for us since she's on the West Coast.
I was thinking about doing that this coming game. I was wanting to do it last game, and then I totally forgot about it.
Well, it'll help give us some variety since we're here and you're there. Sure. You know what I'm saying? And that way we can have access to some of the other games that we normally don't have access to.
Just don't mind, like, if I might have to, like, have other people film for me because I'll be crutching a lot. But I'll probably crutch around and then, like, stop for a bit and film. And so I'll get some bits and pieces in there.
The only interesting part is that we don't have a 5-second delay. Look, the only thing we can't do, and my God, can I just say, I was starting to, and I had to stop. And then I was starting up. Okay, I can't. Oh, okay, I can't block that. Oh, wow, did they? Wow, okay. So yeah, there's no 5-second delay with Periscope. So a lot of stuff I just had to stop. But that's okay though, because guess what? That just shows, the heart and the passion of these athletes and their coaches. So it was okay with me.
Right. All right. Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Awesome. So we'll just, you link it on your Periscope, and then we'll just share it everywhere. So that's great press for everybody too. So looking forward to maybe a tidbit, a couple interviews on both sides of the sidelines or something like that. Maybe the key MVPs of the game. That's always my best thing, is just focus on the players that obviously played well, so that we can get their faces out there. It's usually nice to have just a couple minutes with them. So Holly, thank you. Look forward to this weekend. Let's hope the Majestics muster up and get cleaned up against Portland, because I know they are probably hungry as well. And so coming off of a 29-8 win against the Lady Renegades, so I'm assuming they're looking for another win. So thank you, and I hope you're healing up well. And we'll catch you next Tuesday, same time if you can, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.